So with Guillermo Del Toro's new movie coming out soon on Netflix, that being his adaptation of Frankenstein, his long-awaited adaptation of Mary Shelley's Frankenstein, I really wanted to look back on his career for a second because he was one of my idols growing up. From his original Spanish language movies like Kronos to especially the Hellboy movies, but Blade 2, then his magnum opus, Pan's Labyrinth. As a kid, he was the kind of filmmaker that I could only dream up. He was this immensely talented, really eclectic, big-hearted, deep lover of and a scholar of monster movies. As a kid, Guillermo was the filmmaker I was rooting for the most, and it meant a lot to me to see his star continue to rise, to be taken out of the niches of making comic book movies and monster movies into being embraced as one of our most important filmmakers. As much as I love to see him get his flowers, I love the fact that he has an Oscar, I haven't been locked into Guillermo's past decade of work. It's a little hard to explain. Maybe I got burnt out on his style. Maybe I got tired of his movies looking like cutscenes of a PS5 game. Just his choice to use wide angle steady cam so predominantly in his films now, it removes a lot of that handmade texture that made me really fall in love with the world and the mythology of his original run of films. But I did get to see his Frankenstein in a theater. Thank you, Alamo Drafthouse. And while it has the hallmarks of his recent work when it comes to cinematography, when it comes to production design, that man has a big old heart still. You can tell how much he is cherishing the opportunity to adapt this work. And I thought it was his most deeply felt movie that I've seen from him in a long time. But I thought it'd be fun to look back on his career, to talk about his career by talking about what could be his most underrated movie. I'm talking about Crimson Peak. This is a movie that I missed the boat on. It came out in 2014, did not see it in the theater. I was only vaguely aware that Guillermo Del Toro directed this. I remember seeing the previews and writing it off at the time as another generic, vaguely Victorian ghost movie. That's not a genre that I was really into when I was 16. And let me tell you, when I saw it in 2022, I was reminded of what makes Guillermo del Toro such a precious filmmaker to me. Even though it's not a traditional Del Toro movie, at least at the time, because it doesn't have any creature effects, it does not have any sense of childhood innocence like much of his earlier work. Even his darker works like Pan's Labyrinth still had that sense of childhood innocence. No. This was a dark, supremely dark, psychosexual movie, which had the veneer of a classy, Bronte-esque Victorian haunted house movie. So reading the back of my Arrow video release here, from the imagination of Oscar-winning director Guillermo del Toro comes Crimson Peak, a lavish, stunningly realized journey into the dark heart of Gothic romance. That is one way to put it. If you've seen this movie, I ask you, where's the lie? So, if you haven't seen Crimson Peak, it's about a young woman, a writer in Victorian England, who marries this charming but strange man who has an even more strange sister, and she moves to their manor called Crimson Peak because the grounds are a crimson red. So when you wipe the snow away, it looks like the earth is bleeding. And lo and behold, there are ghosts. But are these ghosts here to haunt our heroine, or are they here for another purpose? What this movie is a pairing of Gothic imagery and atmosphere with some pretty upsetting material. I think it basically beat Emerald Fennell's, what's her name? I think it basically beat whatever Emerald Fennell's Wuthering Heights movie is going to be by 10 plus years. First, I want to talk about the cast of the movie because it's pretty interesting and there is actually some drama there. So the brother here is played by Tom Hiddleston. But he was going to be played by Benedict Cumberbatch, who, I'm thinking back to 2014, the Cumberbitches would have been organized. So he was an established name, but still, finding his footing in Hollywood. He was still, I think, doing Sherlock. He had done Star Trek Into Darkness. I'm sure he was still trying to cultivate that leading man image to fully establish himself as an A-list actor in Hollywood. So he was signed on to do this movie, and because of the taboo material, he got cold feet and he pulled out. And Tom Hiddleston replaced him. Now, do I blame Mr. Cumberbatch for getting cold feet, for not wanting to play this character in this movie at a time when his star was still rising? I guess I can't blame him. Again, you have to be very protective of your image. And Benedict Cumberbatch was one of the most hyped and thirsted for actors to come along in a long time. And this performance that he would have had to give probably would have sullied that, or it could have. There was risk there. But where there is risk, there is reward. And I think he missed out on a huge opportunity. Apparently, he and Del Toro are cool now. They've buried the hatchet to whatever extent there was bad blood there. But I can tell you, my respect for Tom Hiddleston really skyrocketed after seeing this movie. I've always liked him. I don't know, if your mission in life is to play Dr. Stephen Strange, then maybe this could jeopardize that. But if you want to work with great directors and be in movies with real staying power, I think you have to take some risks with your image. Enough about that, because what's important here is that Tom Hiddleston is pretty perfect in the role, right amount of charm, but especially after having played Loki, being known to audiences as Loki, there is already an edge to this character. It's hard to trust him, especially with his sister, which we'll get to her. But even though we know we're watching a ghost movie, there is already immediately a human threat. There is a human element to the danger. Our heroine is played by Mia Wasikowski, that the girl from Alice in Wonderland, Tim Burton's Alice in Wonderland. I always liked her, but thinking back on it, I think this was one of the last movies of hers to be on my radar. This is maybe the last time I saw her in movie trailers. And that's weird, because only a few years before, she was in one of the most profitable movies of all time. She was the star of one of the biggest blockbusters of the 21st century. And I don't know if she pivoted away from embracing that, or she just did not get a bump from Alice in Wonderland because it's such a special effects powered movie.
How did Mia Wasikowska become famous? Did she? I don't think she did. I don't know.
But I find it weird, and I think it's a shame that this is one of the last movies I can remember her in. Yeah, she's great in the film. She's a great heroine. You're really invested in her. And if there is any sense of innocence, it is from her character. But she's still much more mature and adult than, I would say, most of the protagonists in Del Toro's movies up to date. So yeah, easy to root for. Really don't want to see her in danger. And she acts against both her co-stars and the special effects of the movie very well. And lastly, we have to talk about Jessica Chastain playing Benedict Cumberbatch's weird sister. I've rarely seen Jessica Chastain play a character like this. I think the only other time I've seen her play a role like this is that Dark Phoenix movie, the second Dark Phoenix movie, I guess, however we organize all of the Dark Phoenix movies that have been made. She took a break from The Help and Zero Dark 30 and those types of movies to play one of the most skin-crawling characters of a major wide-release film that I can recall. But what I will always remember, Crimson Peak 4, and why I really kicked myself for not seeing this in the theater, is because of the immaculate visual design of this movie. This is from a man who is considered one of the great visionaries of his generation. Guillermo Del Toro has made one beautiful movie, after another. And while this is not his most acclaimed work and not his most widely seen work, I think this is maybe the best testament to his skills as a visual artist. The DP on this was Dan Lauster. He would continue to be Guillermo's DP. He shot the new Frankenstein. I think this is easily their best collaboration together. It was not their first collaboration. I learned that Dan was the DP on Guillermo Del Toro's Mimic, his first American movie, which was famously a very troubled production, something that really hurt Guillermo out at the time. It was heavily interfered with in post-production. And what I really have to call out is the production design. This house, this creepy fucking house that has like no business standing upright. When you see the interior of this place, it is like rotting from the inside. It's decomposing. If they ever made a haunted house of this, I'm sure that would be a big hit for some of y'all, but I would not step foot in there. I would not trust the walls around me to not crumble. The production designer on here was Tom Sanders. He worked on Braveheart. He worked on Bram Stoker's Dracula. I think this is a bigger accomplishment in a lot of ways than his work on Dracula. I think because the direction is so focused, because the story is so focused on this house, it allowed me to have the time to really appreciate all of the detail. And this is work with layers. The further we descend into this story, the more we inspect this house and all of the terrible secrets that it holds. And the climax in the basement, in this frosty basement, that's something I could pause and just admire it frame by frame. It also is a really effective sequence of terror, a sequence of suspense. It's an unsettling movie, but it's also a really gripping one. It functions as a ghost story, as a Gothic ghost story, and as a testament to Guillermo Del Toro, what he can do when he's locked in, when he's working with the right team, and when he's taking chances on material. This was not a safe movie to make. The fact that one of the lead actors bailed on it just shows that. This is the first time that Guillermo flirted with deviance of any sort in his films, although we still have a traditional dynamic. We have a virginal, pure-hearted final girl. It's not like The Shape of Water where our heroine is fucking a fish, which I think we're supposed to cheer on as if it were any other type of romance. The moral structure of this movie is traditional, but I did not expect Guillermo to go there. He did. He took a big swing with this movie. It didn't seem to pay off at the time, and it did not get the best reviews, surprisingly. People were either off-put by how slow-paced the movie is. It takes a while for our heroine to get to the haunted house, or people were off-put by how skin-crawling and upsetting the movie ends up being. Spoiler warning here, but I say give it all to me, man. Give me a slow burn movie about incest. I'm here for it. I did not buy a ticket for the movie, but I now own it on Arrow Video, a release that I highly recommend getting, especially if you're already a fan of the movie. So it's not my favorite Guillermo del Toro movie. That would be Hellboy 2. And looking back, maybe I started to sour on Guillermo because I was so frustrated that we never got a Hellboy 3. And this is definitely not the gateway Guillermo movie. This should not be your first Del Toro movie. But if you're like me and you needed a reminder of just how talented he is, and if you want to see a ghost movie that really breaks conventions and breaks taboos, then totally check out Crimson Peak. See Guillermo del Toro's Frankenstein. Please see it in a theater if you can, but watch it on Netflix. Do what you have to do to see it. It's my favorite of his since Crimson Peak, and Crimson Peak is my favorite of his since Pan's Labyrinth. But yeah, that's it for today's video, guys. Like and subscribe, you know what to do, and I'll see you next time.